Hi everyone, happy Thursday to you. December 7th, also need to remember to honor Pearl Harbor. Today happened in 1941. And so if you have a minute, take a minute to honor those today. And then we can also jump in and start talking about set it and forget it systems. So you may have heard me talk about it in the past, or maybe not, but I'm a big proponent of what I call set it and forget it systems. And it's basically a simple way to build systems, right? I want to stress that simple is not the same thing as easy, okay? But it's a way to build simple systems. So the basic premise is there are three components to a set it and forget it system. And I let me take a step back and explain. I came up with this plan or program if you Google like how do I use a VA or how do I figure out how to use a VA, things like that, it'll say outline the task you want someone else to do, build a system, and then hire a VA. And it's like, well, how do you build a system? Like everything is all about just build a system. And then if you Google how to build a system, it's all these like engineering intense systems with like fancy diagrams and things like that. So there's nothing really about simple business systems for small business owners. And that's where I came up with set it and forget it systems. So there are actually three components to a set it and forget it system. And we're going to go over those, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some specifics and some examples. I think set it and forget it system is so big that it'll cover multiple Facebook Lives. Like I might even just make it its own topic. Today's topic is more of a how-to, business how-to. But maybe I'll make set it and forget it systems its own topic. Anyway, so we'll go over a specific feature or focus of set it and forget it systems later, but I just want to give you a broad overview right now. So there are three components. The first is trigger. So if you build a set it and forget it system with keeping in mind that you're going to have someone else do the system, like actually do the work, then it helps you to build a system that really is more automated or more robust, or a truer system, if you will. So the first component of a set it and forget it system is a trigger. So what triggers that system into action? Is it a certain time of day, a certain day of the week, a certain day of the month, or something happening? For example, if you are using a VA, is the trigger that you're going to text them or send them an email or somehow tell them start this system or this task? Or is it like I said, like a certain time of day or day of week where the VA knows, okay, I'm supposed to do this at this point. The second component are tools. What are the tools needed to complete that task? For example, you need a template email? Do you basically send roughly the same email every time? Do you need a form that needs to be filled out? Or a calendar for scheduling appointments, things like that. And if that's the case, you identify those tools, but you also identify how to access those tools. Shared drives might be another tool. So what are the tools and how to access them? And the third component is action. What are the actions need to be taken in order to complete that task? So for example, let's say confirming appointments is your build, set it and forget it system. And so the trigger is every day at noon, your VA logs into your calendar, right? So the tools are, they have access to your calendar, they have access to your scheduling system, like if you use something like Calendly for scheduling, and they have access to your company phone number, whether it's Google Voice or some other shared phone number. You don't want them doing it on their personal phone. And what are the rules for rescheduling or cancellations if necessary? So those are the tools they have in place. They have, and the voicemail script, or just a script in general. They have the script. They have the access to your calendar so they know who to call. They have access to your scheduling system so they can reschedule if necessary. They have the script to call people and either speak with them live or leave a voicemail. And they have the rules around rescheduling or cancellations. And what are the actions that they're going to take? The third component is actions, right? So they're going to, every day at noon, they're going to log into your calendar. They're going to call everyone on the next day who's scheduled for you on the next day. And they're going to use their script to either speak with them live or leave a voicemail. And if the person needs to reschedule or cancel, they're going to follow those rules. And then maybe the last action is sending you an update with what's happening with what happened. Did I left 5 voicemails, or I left 4 voicemails and spoke to 2 live people and had to reschedule someone? What kind of information do you want to know after they've completed that task? So that's basically the components of a set it and forget it system. One of the things I wanted to really focus on today is about automation. Now, how do you automate something? Or I think what happens now is when we say, how do you automate something? Our immediate thought is technology, right? Because automate means some sort of machine, like software or some sort of technology that does it automatically, right? But if you look at another way of automatic, it doesn't have to be a machine. It just means it happens without thought, right? Because it's automatic. So I say that automate means removing a decision. Okay, so a very basic example is when you're doing laundry, when nowadays you have those detergent pods, or even doing dishes, right? You have those detergent pods. You just toss one in and it's done. Whereas if you're still using liquid or even powder detergent, you have to measure how much you're going to put in, and you have to decide how much you're going to put in based on how big the load is and how dirty the clothes are. And so that pod is not a machine. It's not technology. However, I would say that automated a decision. You no longer have to decide how much detergent is required for that load of laundry. You simply throw the pod in. So that's one less decision you have to make, which means it was automated. And so that is a critical piece of set it and forget it systems, is what can you automate? What can you remove a decision that needs to happen? There are various ways of doing that, and I'll talk more about each of them in future Facebook Lives. But today I wanted to share with you a story from a friend of mine and how she she removed decisions and therefore removed actions required in order to get something done. I love this story. She doesn't know I'm doing this, so I don't know if she's watching, but if she is, I hope she's not offended. So she runs a consulting company, and she wanted to reach out to some clients to offer them sort of like a one-time project before the end of the year. And, it'd be a way to get some quick cash, but also to make sure she was staying in touch with these clients that had used her services previously for this project. And so she was going to send them an email saying, I wanted to let you know that there's this service being offered for the year end, and you need to, if you sign up by this date, you'll get it at a lower price. And so she had said, what the lower price was. And so we happened to be talking about it while she was setting it up, and we started talking about how to handle that in the sense that if someone was interested, 2 actions needed to occur. One, they needed to pay up front. If you are a small business owner, it's critical that you are taking some sort of payment up front, whether it's a deposit or full payment or something up front. And it's not, I don't see a lot of it where people are purposely trying to not pay you or, steal from you or anything like that. It's just, as small business owners, that if your clients are late paying you, you're late paying your vendors. And it's just kind of this vicious cycle, right? And so it's hard to pay on time if your vendors or your clients are late paying you. And so when your clients aren't paying you, it's not because they don't want to or they're trying to cheat you most of the time. It's because their clients are late paying them. And frankly, you are not a top vendor for them to pay on time, right? Like, for example, the bigger companies, my AT&T bill, if I don't pay it on time, they're going to cut my service. So I'm going to pay them faster than I'm going to pay my bookkeeper, who's also a small business owner, because I know he's going to understand. You know what I mean? And so that's what I mean by, it's not that I actively was like, oh, he won't care. It's just more like, okay, this bill, I have to pay this bill faster. Otherwise, they're going to cut my service. And so the bigger companies have that power, if you will. But anyway, my point though is that, you got to figure out a way to take payment up front, whether it's a deposit or whether it's half or whether it's the whole thing, depending on what service you provide, obviously for products as well. And so we were talking about that, so 2 actions need to happen. 1, they need to pay. 2, they need to schedule time with her and her staff in order for this, in order to receive this service that she was offering. And so we talked about that, like, how would that work? Like, how would we handle that? Because, we talked, well, would her employee monitor that? So once the payment came through, then she would reach out to schedule a call or something like that. And I forget how the whole conversation went, but at one point I was like, how can't you make that automatic somehow? Or how do you make that automatic? And I was suggesting to her that, one, figuring out which one was more important than the other, or timely than the other, I guess. And so I was saying, when you send that email, you can say, if you're interested, click here to sign up. And it would take them to a payment page or something like that. And then once she got notified that they had sent a payment page, then she could reach out to them to get a meeting scheduled. Or vice versa, depending on what was most critical. Like, they could schedule a call and then she would send them an invoice or something like that. But to somehow automate that, make it so that there was less action required, less decision required on her and her staff's part. So she was able to, and I had suggested JotForm because I use JotForm. I love JotForm. And she had, and you can accept payment on JotForm. I think a lot of forms you can accept payment, but I know specifically JotForm you can. And so she ended up creating a JotForm, and that had a link to her payment processor. I use PayPal, she uses someone else, but JotForm has integration with who she uses. So she was able to create a link. So the client, when they filled out the form that they were interested, they clicked on the next link, took them to the payment option. And so once they paid, then it took them to her Calendly link to schedule a call with her and her staff, or a meeting with her and her staff. So the whole thing became automated. So not only was this a cash, like an easy cash solution, but more importantly, a way to continue fostering or rekindle relationships with clients. But it also became a completely automated way for her clients to receive this or to sign up for this service. And I just thought that was so neat that happened. And it took her, I don't know how long it took her, but maybe an hour or so to build this. And she's pretty tech savvy. Which brings me to my next point. You might be like, oh, that sounds amazing, but I'm totally not tech savvy. I don't know how to do stuff like that. Then find someone who does. Find a friend or an advisor, or go into some of these Facebook groups that are for small business owners and find out how to do it. Me personally, like I don't know if I could figure out how to do it to where it went from the payment to the calendar to Calendly. I don't know. Maybe there's a way, like I think if I remember correctly, maybe JotForm has a way. It says after they pay, where do you want them to go? And then you could put another link on there. I'm not sure, that's something I'd have to ask her about, but I just thought that was so neat that, on the one hand, it's like, well, how many, I think she was reaching out to maybe 20 people. So it's not like it's going to be hundreds of people trying to schedule appointments with her. But still, just that little bit of time freed up so much time, because now she can, these appointments are going to automatically be made from a few emails. Like she sent the initial one, she might send a few follow-ups, and then the appointments are going to be automatically be made. So that's less decisions and actions on her and her staff's part. And so I think that's really cool. And I really want to encourage you, when you're thinking about building your set it and forget it systems, what tools can you use to make it as automatic as possible? And I'll share with you one more, and this is mostly just to talk about the trigger. So when we're talking with a business owner about starting at Freedom Makers, there are a few things I need to know to get them started. The first is their contact information. The second is, what do they want us to do for them? And the third is when do they want their calls to be? And I won't go into all the detail about what the calls mean, but that's a critical piece of information. And I also charge a deposit. And so it was a bit weird at first, because most of that information I would get from the phone. And so I'd say, okay, this is obviously, I know your phone number, I know your email, and I know what you want us to do for you. And when do you want your calls to be? And so then they would look at their calendar and tell me, and they'd be like, okay, so I'm going to now send you an invoice for the deposit. And when you pay it, then we'll start finding the right Freedom Makers for you. So then I'd have to manually go into QuickBooks, create an invoice, and send it to them, and then just kind of monitor my email or QuickBooks or my bank to see when they made their payment. And then I turn to my coordinator and say, okay, here's the information you need to get started, or send the email out to our team. And it was kind of, when you're busy doing everything for your business, you may not notice that email come in saying so-and-so paid their deposit or paid the invoice. And so then it might be a while before it delays the start of our search, right? So the trigger was missing. So now a few months ago, I created a jot form where when I'm speaking with a client or a business owner, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to move forward, I say, okay, I'm going to send you this form, fill it out, and it'll take you to PayPal for payment for your deposit. And once you fill that out, that triggers us into finding the Freedom Makers for you. And so when they fill it out, we get an email. So my coordinator gets an email with all the information she needs. And then I see the email come through, and I'm able to start the notification to our team. And man, that's so much easier and less work and less decisions on my part. And it's faster. It is faster. They pay faster, because that's the other thing is they're like, okay, I want my calls on Monday. And, today's Thursday, for instance. I want my calls on Monday, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to send you the invoice. And then kind of wait for them to pay it, right? And because I'm not starting unless they pay it. And so what if they don't pay it till Friday? Now we've got to scramble to be ready on Monday. But by having the form, we don't even know when they want their calls to be until they pay. And so then it sort of resets everything, gives us the right amount of time we need to do our jobs. So I just want to just highlight that, Set It and Forget It systems is all about triggers, tools, and actions to help you outline what the work is that needs to be done. And then consider how to automate, not necessarily meaning technology, but how to reduce the decisions that you need to make and the actions that you need to take in order to get that task done. Going back to the laundry situation, using the pod as an example of one way to automate doing laundry, but to fully automate doing laundry would be to hire a cleaning service. And so maybe your housekeeper, while they're there cleaning, will also be running laundry. Or you could even have a TaskRabbit come do your laundry or take it to a laundry service. That would be fully automated. But so that's what I mean. There's differing levels of making something automatic, of removing the decisions that need to be made and the actions that need to be taken. So specifically for today, I want to encourage you to look at things like JotForm and the things that it connects to, such as payment systems and Calendly or other calendar systems, so that people can automatically sign up for your services, schedule calls with you, or do any other things that they need to your clients, that they can get them started faster and therefore paying you faster. So that's my tip for today. We'll be back next week. And again, I wish you a happy Thursday and look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks. Bye.